Okay, Boker Tov. So we start Sanhedrin today. We're a day in advance, and as I've said to everybody, what we are going to be doing is experimenting with doing a combination of Bavli Yerushalmi. We're going to start with Yerushalmi. There is a Daf Yomi that follows the Vilna printing of the Yerushalmi. When it comes to the Bavli, what do you mean? There's only one Bavli, the Vilna printing, right? None of us know about any other edition or whatever. But the Yerushalmi has had a couple of editions. And anyway, the Vilna printing of the Yerushalmi looks pretty similar to the Bavli, right? It's got a middle text. It's got the surrounding stuff. It's not the best text. It wasn't transcribed the best. But anyway, but there is a Daf Yomi of the Yerushalmi that is key to a daf in the Vilna Yerushalmi, and that gets done in about 4 years or so. We're going to be doing a variation, which is a Yerushalmi that is not a full daf, but that is a corresponding chunk to what the daf is in the Bavli. And obviously, you can't always exactly parallel because you're going to do the Yerushalmi in order. So the Yerushalmi might have a slightly different order. So it won't always be exactly in parallel, but the idea is you're sort of doing the Yerushalmi and the Bavli together. And that also means that they are smaller chunks because we're going to take 7.5 years for the Yerushalmi as we do for the Bavli. So it was hard to find a calendar for this. I sent one out. That's what this is. That is, again, synced to the Vilna version of the Yerushalmi. It tells you which daf on the Yerushalmi, meaning the Vilna version. The other thing that I've done is, yes, you can pass this out and you can pass out this, and I've sent out links to both of these, or the actual attachment for this. This is the Vilna Yerushalmi, can be gotten off of Hebrew books. That's where I got it, and I uploaded a segment, all of Masechet Sanhedrin as a PDF. The other thing I sent out, which we won't use as much of a standard text, but it's excellent, is as I mentioned once before, there's only one manuscript that survived of the Yerushalmi, and it's not like there's others that are half of it. There's one that's almost basically the entire Yerushalmi, and there are others that are tiny fragments. If it weren't for this manuscript, the only text of the Yerushalmi we would have would be what was quoted by the Rishonim. The Rishonim had a lot of manuscripts, but only one survived. Anyway, so the Mechon Lilashon Ha'ivrit or something like that in Israel recently completely retranscribed that manuscript, with one big, huge red volume. It's that high, that thick, or whatever. Anyway, of the entire Yerushalmi, and that's what this is a copy of. So this is nice block print. It's easy to read. You can follow in this as well. One thing I'll point out is you'll notice along the margins here, and that's true in the Vilna printing as well, I believe, like it says something like Yud Chet Amud Aleph, and here it says Yud Chet Amud Bet, and it even gets to an Amud Gimel and an Amud Daled. Now, Amud Gimel, Amud Daled sounds weird to us because what are you doing, like a cube or something? But an Amud literally means a column, and what this refers to is the original printing, which is based off of the Ksav Yad Leiden. That's the Ksav Yad. The original printing of that had 2 columns per page, like this did. So this would be the Amud Aleph. This would be Amud, the column 2, and then on the other side it would be, whatever. If this was side B, it would be Amud Gimel and Amud Daled. So this is keyed towards the original printing from the original transcription of Ksav Yad Leiden. That is the reference point. One last point, and then we will start, which is the Yerushalmi had no Mishnah, at least the Ksav Yad we have, had no Mishnah printed with it or in the manuscript with it. So when they did the Vilna one, they just copied from the standard Mishnah. But we don't know always exactly the text of the Mishnah the Yerushalmi is working off of. So anyway, if you deal with this version, there won't be any Mishnah written in it. It's just the straight Gemara. Okay, so anyway, we're going to use this as our default, but the Vilna version, but people can look at the other one if they want to. Yes?
Even in the Bavli, there are occasionally times when the standard Mishnah is not identical to what's in the Bavli.
Yeah, that's true too. But anyway, but basically it's the same. All right, so let's take a look. We're going to start with Yerushalmi. All right, and here we go. I guess one last thing I'll say, and then the rest we'll just figure it out as we go along. It's not a whole class in the writing of the Yerushalmi, but the Yerushalmi did not have about the last 100 years of editing that the Bavli did. And the basic difference is that the Yerushalmi has very, very little stam. So if you imagine, that's why it's shorter. Imagine trying to read the Bavli and taking out the anonymous voice. You'd have all the statements of the Amoraim, but you wouldn't have a narrative web that sort of weaved them all together. So in the Yerushalmi, the transitions and the questions it's asking and the answers and exactly how it's framing it, it's very, very sparse. Some wanted to understand, like there's a famous Nitziv who, whatever, wants to understand it's like a different, sort of methodology of the Yerushalmi. That may or may not be true, but the real point is that it didn't have the last 100 years of editing. So even if in the actual live discussions, and by the way, Yerushalmi is a misnomer, it wasn't written in Yerushalayim. It's on the Talmud B'nai Marav, or Talmud Eretz Yisrael is a better way of referring to it. Anyway, in their discussions in their yeshivot or whatever, or in their whatever, the discussions of the Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael, it might have been the similar, as fleshed out or close to as fleshed out in the Bavli. We don't know, but it wasn't actually, the final text actually doesn't really have very, very little stop. Okay, and it is written not in Hebrew. Don't think just because it's coming from Eretz Yisrael, it's in Hebrew. It's written in Palestinian Aramaic, which I am no grammarian. As far as I know, it's just as easy or just as hard of a language as Babylonian Aramaic. But because we haven't been learning it, it's not as fluent to, I think, most people. So anyway, let's take a look. It was edited about, I think, I'd have to get you the exact date, but I think it was about the 4th century, and the Bavli, like the 5th century.
This manuscript we have is around from the 1st
No. Manuscript does not mean from the time the original text was written. No, the manuscript, I forget, 11th century, 12th century, something like that. Okay, so Dini Mamanis, So Dini Mamanis B'Shlosha, then we're going to read the Mishnah, which is printed here with the Yerushalmi, which was not, again, we don't know if it's exactly the Mishnah that the Yerushalmi had. Dini Mamanis B'Shlosha. So now that we've spent the 3 bavas talking about all of the substantive laws of civil laws, and so on, and torts and Dini Mamanis, this Mesechet Sanhedrin deals with how are they adjudicated and the court system. So it begins the following way. Dini Mamanis B'Shlosha, issues relating to monetary issues are dealt with in a basin of 3. Gzelos v'chavos B'Shlosha, if there are cases about theft or injury, personal injury. 3, nezek v'chati nezek, if it's damage of property, whether done by a person damaging property or an animal damaging property, or whether it's half damages because of what an ox that is, for the first 3 times, an ox only pays half. Tashlumei keva, tashlumei arba v'chamisha, paying double or paying 4 and 5 if something is burgled. Or if it's a sheep or an ox that's burgled and then slaughtered or sold, 4 and 5. Ha'onis from Mefates, somebody who rapes a girl, a young woman, or a man who seduces her. In those cases, you pay damages, and you also pay fines, knasot. So what we're sort of shifting to is from Gzelos and Chavalos, which are cases of paying back for a loss that was incurred on the other side, and Nezek and Chati Nezek is similarly a loss that was incurred on the other side. We're transitioning to payments of fines, which are paying more than the loss that was incurred, and it's not direct compensation. Motzi Shemra is the man who basically says that after he slept with his wife for the first time, she was not a virgin, and therefore he is actually claiming not only that he was cheated and that he shouldn't have to pay the same ksuva, but also that he committed adultery between the Erusin and the Nisuin, and that, and if it turns out that what he's saying is true, then he'll actually be executed. If it turns out that he's lying, then he has to pay a special fine. Bishlosha, all of those, even though those are cases of fines, and so you're going from compensation to a type of a court-imposed monetary punishment. So you might think punishments require a different type of a court. No, that's with 3. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's what Rabbi Meir says. The Chachamim Omin and the sages say, Hamotzi Shemra be'esim b'shlosha, the one who actually, the Motzi Shemra case, you need 23, which is the minimum size of a court dealing with capital crimes. Why? Sheyesh bo dinin fashot. Because if it turns out that what he's saying is true, then it could turn into a capital crime. And that might mean not only that we want to then be ready for that case, but that might characterize the whole case as a type of a capital crime, and therefore it demands 23. Let's take a look at the Yerushalmi.
Well, why does the Bavli have its own one?
But that I'll talk about that when we get to the Bavli. Okay, so non-tasile. So that's the Yerushalmi's way of saying minola. Where do we learn this out from? presumably that you need 3 judges. What's the basis of that? So it says, "Vayu eila lachem lechukat mishpat." These shall be for you for a edict of judgment. Okay, so Eila, like all of them, all the laws are being equated. So Hayiti Omer, Echad Dini Mamnetz Vechad Dini Nefashos B'Drisha V'Chakira. Whether it is monetary laws or whether it is capital crimes, you're going to need Drisha V'Chakira. Drisha V'Chakira is the cross-examining of witnesses, demanding that they give the exact time and location and so on. Now, why that's a surprise is because the practical halacha is that you don't do Drisha V'Chakira for simple cases of Dini Mamnetz, of monetary cases. And the Gemara is going to explain, not now, but later, whatever, that that was a special, even though technically it is required by Dinei Mamanis, the rabbis waived it because they didn't want people to not lend money because it would be so impossible to produce, witnesses. The witnesses would get so scared away and cross-examined and whatever, they never get their money back. Okay? But in principle, Dinei Mamanis and Dinei Nefashos are the same. Now, that's not really our question. Our question is, how do you know 3? Okay, but anyway, but somehow this is a problem of the Yerushalmi. There's a major debate of the commentators to say, like, that was a non-responsive answer. What did that have to do with the idea of 3? Okay, but some want to say, well, maybe it's actually strengthening the question. If Dinei Nefashos need 23, then maybe Dinei Mamanis should need 23, the same way they both need Drisha V'Chakira. Okay, or maybe it's, anyway, it's not exactly clear how that's answering or whether it's answering or strengthening the question. But now we're going to actually continue on. Okay, so something you just have to be prepared to be a little frustrated. Like I said, there's no stam. So it's like, wait, what was that saying? I got what the line was saying, but how did that answer the question? Okay, but now it continues. That might just have been the lead up to the next statement of the Breita. Okay, fine, that tells you equate Dinei Mamanis with Dinei Nefashos. But how do you know Dinei Mamanis? You need 3, which was our original question. So here's a pasuk in Mishpatim that talks about when there's a question about somebody that was entrusted to somebody, a shomer chinam, and they say that something happened to it, and maybe they're lying, and they swear, and he says you bring it in front of the judges to adjudicate. And 3 times in that parsha does it refer to the judges as Ha Elohim, the God. Okay, which is a whole issue about the judges sort of representing God's justice on earth, and the classic drasha that you need 3 judges, and that's a Dinei Mamanis. That's a classic case, right? That I say you stole my object, you're denying that you're saying something happened to it, but I'm saying that you're lying. So that's a classic Dinei Mamanis, and the use of the word Elohim 3 times tells you need 3 judges. Okay, so let's take a look. B'v'nikra balabais el ha'Elohim riba. So one use of the word Elohim says 1 judge. Ad Elohim yavod dvar shneihem.
That should be at least 2.
All right, we're not fine, but we're not saying that. Harei shnayim. The use of the word Elohim a second time tells you 2 judges. Asher yashin Elohim. That's the 3rd time in the parsha. Those that the judges find guilty. Harei kan shlosha. So it uses the word Elohim 3 times. That's 3 judges. Dibre Rabbi Yoshaya. That's what Rabbi Yoshaya says. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Harishon Tchilanema. The first use of the word Elohim is you need to refer to the subject. You can't start counting number 1 with Elohim because that's just the way you reference it. You can count extra because the word is duplicated. But the first time it's not yet being duplicated. You need to say it. Okay? That's said for the first time. The Ein Darshin Chilot. You can't go ahead and use the first usages of a word to start, doing the drasha with. That's just to tell you pshat. Ela ad Elohim arei echad, asher yoshiun Elohim arei shnayim. So with the 2 extra uses, the replication could have said alehem. It didn't have to repeat the word Elohim. That tells you, that allows you to count the numbers. So you get to 2, but 2 isn't 3. Aim based in shakol, but then this is a classic move the Gemara does, which is if you can get to 2, you can get to 3. Okay, because you can't have an even court, because you can't have a split court. Okay, so aim based in shakol. So mosiven alei and od echad, you have to by perforce assume another one. Harei shlosha. So that's how you get 3. Okay, similar way, except slightly different approach to getting to the same result.
So if you start out with 3 and then one got sick or something, then you have to get another one along the way.
Well, okay. I mean, that raises interesting questions about what does that mean of aim based in shakol, right? So is that in principle you can have 2? I mean, you can say it the other way, and maybe so it's an interesting question. Like, does getting to 3 that way lead to a different way of conceptualizing what the idea means of 3? Like, is it you basically have a quorum, but you can't adjudicate? I mean, so anyway, we're going to bracket that, but that's an important question. Okay, Rabbi Omer, Rabbi says, Eino el, okay, Rabbi Omer b'shnayim akasim medaper. Well, no, we're only talking about 2. Now, now it seems like he might be saying, again, it's always a little uncertain. But it seems like he might be saying that, you count the word as 2. You don't count the word as 1. Michael said because the word Elohim is in the plural, which is a good reason, but that's not exactly what it seems like it's going to be said here. Maybe the use of the word means 1. Asher Yashiyun Elohim Ein Ksiv Kan. It doesn't say Asher Yashiyun Elohim, Ella Asher Yashiyun Elohim. But it says Asher Yerushalmi. Does anybody notice the difference between the first?
The spelling.
How is it spelled differently?
Vav.
The second one has a vav. So he says the fact that it says Yerushalmi Malay with a vav means that we should understand that we're talking about it means 2 judges and not 1. We should read it in a more expansive way. Only a slight little problem is if you go back and look at the Chumash, you'll see that our text does not have a vav. It's Yerushalmi without the vav. Sometimes there are midrashim that darshan extra letters or whatever, or missing letters that don't correspond to our version of the text. So they did not have, this was before the Masoretes. They didn't always have the exact. There were variations.
Our text wrong, or was their text wrong?
Yeah, who knows? Okay, Michael knows they're going to not be able to sleep tonight. Okay, so ain basing shackle. So there's not a you can't have only 2. Mosibon only an odech hadareish losha. That doesn't sound significantly different, and not only that, it's a little troublesome. Like, why did he have to do it through this extra vav, or why he was doing it? We already had 2 uses of the word Elohim. Okay, so this is going to bother the Gemara, and the Gemara is going to think maybe this leads to a conclusion you need 5, because the pasuk Asher Yashiyun Elohim means those that find guilty are 2, and Ein Beis Din Shakul is 3. So if the guilty part of the Beis Din, those finding guilty are 3, then they're outweighing those that are voting for innocence. So maybe that leads to a Beis Din of 5. Okay, because he's emphasizing just learning, not counting all the Elohims, just learning from Asher Yashiyun Elohim. So that seems what the next question of the Gemara is. Again, it's a little unclear. If that's going to be like a refrain of mine, it's a little unclear. Okay, so anyway, Rabbi Avo boy. So Rabbi Avo asked, according to Rabbi, would you say Dine Mamnos b'chamisha? Would you say that you need to do Dine Mamnos with 5 if he focuses on Asher Yashiyun Elohim? The guilty part of the Beis Din is 3, those finding for guilt. So does that mean you need 5? V'shi-yigamer b'chaf gimel. And what does yigamer b'chaf gimel mean? So the way I think one of the Mefarshim explained, which is good, is would you say in a capital case it's not enough to have a Beis Din of 23, but that the majority has to be 23, so the whole Beis Din has to be 45? Like, really, you're going to read the 3 not as the whole Beis Din, but as that half that finds it guilty. So you're going to wind up doubling the number. So Ashkachtani Debei Chizkiah. So we taught in a bright in the name of the Debei Chizkiah. However, Amar Torah Harog al Pi Matim, Harog al Pi Edim. So the Torah says kill on the basis of witnesses. 2 witnesses say. So also kill on the basis of when there's a majority. But this is a principle we're going to see again in the Bavli a little bit more fleshed out. The majority to find guilty for capital crime has to be a majority of 2. It can't be a majority of 1. Okay, right? You understand? It can't just be a razor thin majority to find guilty. So, and here it learns it out from the comparison of Adim to the judges. 2 witnesses can find a person guilty. So for a majority to find a person guilty, the scales have to be tipped by 2 judges. All right. So ma edim shnayim af matim shnayim. Those that tip the scales have to be 2. Ain based in shaku. What?
2 8 in there. Meaning 1 8.
All right. We'll worry about We'll worry about it when we get to the Bavli. Let's just finish this drasha. Ain based in shaku. Now you don't have an even based in. Mosifin alein od echad. So now you need to add 1 because you can't 2 isn't enough. Harei chamisha, which is 5, which is what? It sounds like the point that the Gemara was asking earlier, the way I explained the Gemara earlier, which is those that find guilty, the guilty part of the Beis Din has to be 2. Oh, but 2 isn't enough, so we have to add 1 that makes 3. So if the guilty part is 3, the innocent part is 2. That's a Beis Din of 5. which is not our conclusion. Our conclusion is you need a base din of 3. So again, we are left with a little like vagueness around what exactly the Yerushalmi is doing, but the general sort of thrust seems to be that according to Rabbi, Asher Yarshun Elohim, the extra vav, is telling you an idea of 2 and then 3, and that the 3 are not just the size of the base din, but the Gemara sort of either asking or saying, not clear which one, asking or saying that means that the guilty, those finding guilty are 3, which would mean the base din is 5. Okay, and then again, is that sort of saying that can't be? You can't say you need a base din of 5, or is it saying no? Actually, that is what Rabbi is saying, right? So it's not exactly clear where that's concluding, but it's a slightly different way of getting to the number 3, and maybe it's even a way of getting to the number 5. So we'll end with this for the Yerushalmi right now, and now you're going to be so relieved when we turn to the Bavli and things are spelled out. Okay.
The rest of the does not correspond to that.
Right. I gave the calendar. You can see the calendar. Okay. So we're going to do a little chunk each day of the Yerushalmi, and it won't always exactly correspond because we're still going to do the Yerushalmi in order, and the order might be slightly different. Now the Bavli here, the first whole Amud of the Bavli. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm going to turn off and turn on, like I said I would do.